All right, guys, we are live here on YouTube. So today has been quite an interesting day. So, I just did an interview on Cryptic's uh, channel on YouTube, which has been incredible. Oh, look at that. And Cryptic's is on here watching and just said, hi, Jeff. Well, I just gave you a shout out too, brother. So we were on there just a few days ago. If you look in the community section of this, my podcast here on YouTube, you will see that I posted the links to all of that stuff. Go and watch it, check it out. It was a great episode where we got to talk about Delphi. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Delphi here, but not too much because I got another episode to put out there. But I also had some crazy stuff happen today. I got off of work and I had a lady that watched one of my shorts on the JonBenet Ramsey case and saw about the DNA and got really, really upset at me and called me all kinds of names. And let me tell you this, right up front, I never, ever believe that people aren't entitled to their opinion. You are able to believe whatever you want to believe. It is up to you. I will never stop you. I will never force you to believe what I believe. If I even have an opinion on it, right? Because in this case, I don't know what my opinion is. I'm still kind of undecided. I had an opinion. It's changed a little bit. But see, this is what adults do, right? Adults make sure that they're able to converse with people and they're open enough to look at different ideas, different opinions, different viewpoints, and then they make a decision. And so, when somebody comes to me and is very angry at me and is calling me evil and calling me a liar and all of these things, when they haven't watched one episode of anything that I've ever done and have not engaged with me personally and don't know me at all, I have problems. And to say that I don't do my research, I definitely do my research. I definitely take time to understand things. But on my podcast, I intentionally read the description, guys. I want to talk about alternative theories that not everybody is always talking about, because those theories also need light, right? We need to look at the entire body of evidence so we can really understand the cases that we're looking at. And to just look at it from one viewpoint or one person's opinion or even 50 million people's opinion is not enough. And so, like I said, my opinions aren't always fully formed. And sometimes people come to me, they have better evidence, they have better theories, and I might take that theory and I may look at it. It may change my opinion, but that's because I'm an adult, right? And I am more than willing to hear other people out and see what they have to say and understand what they have to say. And it's cool, man. Have your opinion. It's good. So yeah, kindness. Thanks for checking it out and being here. And yeah, absolutely. Look at everything. It is important. It is really important to look at everything. All right. Without further ado, I am going to bring Mary and Sherry, and we got Cindy tonight. I see Cindy is in there. We haven't gotten a chance to talk to Cindy in forever. She is often working when we get to do these lives now, and Cindy has not been on yet. So I'm super excited. These are all three ladies that were with me pretty much the entire time I was doing true crime trivia on Clubhouse. They were kind of like my nexus there, not nexus of crime, but nexus of trivia. So they were there every week hanging out with me. And all of them are really, really intelligent ladies that know a lot about true crime and often give me great suggestions. So we're going to bring them on. And here we go. Mary's here. And we got Cindy and Sherry. Look at that. How's it going, everybody? How y'all doing?
Hey guys.
Hi, Cindy.
Very good. Hey everyone.
Dude, it's me and three ladies. It's crazy. I feel like I'm in the minority right now. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
was
Jeff.
I was getting ready to create the post and let people know that we were on here live. So let me do that. You guys talk a little bit. Say hi to
Well,
everybody. Um,
well,
Hey, everyone.
I noticed Cindy was on, and I say, Cindy, you need to come on.
Hi, guys.
Hi,
Yeah.
Cindy.
Once again, I'm under the weather,
Oh, God.
but I'm getting better. I bought a bunch of cold items today, so I do have to go back to work tomorrow because I was out yesterday.
Yeah.
If I'm out 3 days, then I have to go to the doctor so they can just say, "Oh, it's a virus," and that goes.
so, well, see, the only time we get you anymore is when you're sick. So
Well, I mean,
maybe
I have to say I missed trivia on Sundays because that was a perfect time for me.
yeah,
Especially
it
with the
was.
time difference.
Yeah, so for those of you guys that don't know, Cindy, where are you at now in Washington?
I'm in Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle. So in Washington. So we've got Cindy who's in Washington, Sherry is in Long Island, and Mary is from Scotland. So for those of you that don't know, this is a nation worldwide gathering of the minds here.
I
So
think you mean it's international, Jeff.
yeah, that's the other word. That's a good one.
Well,
Yeah.
worldwide, same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I like it all works, right?
Right.
All right, so I don't know, Cindy, have you gotten a chance to watch the podcast?
I have not, but I will
That's
do
a,
that when we're done here.
I'm gonna pull you off the stage right now. You're out. See you later.
Oh,
Shame, James. Shame, James.
I have watched some of your YouTubes though.
Yeah, well, that's the podcast. Is
Yeah.
the YouTube stuff.
Oh yeah,
To
I
be-
watched some of your.
To be fair, Jeff, Cindy's been ill now. Cut
I
some
know.
slack. Cut some slack.
Have I ever been known to cut anybody any slack?
No,
don't do it. Don't do
No,
it.
but
and
I'm just saying.
Cindy, watch the episode when Jeff was calling me for everything when I was in hospital.
Yeah, it happened. We didn't know.
But when I came back, though, to Jeff's credit, he did apologise.
He did.
Well, that's good.
He did. So I'll give him his due.
I did not know. So, all right. So last week, we had an episode on JonBenet Ramsey.
Oh.
And I had John Wesley Anderson on the show, and we had an incredible conversation about the case itself. And so for all of you guys that have been here for a while, you know that I always believed, and I'll start off again by saying this, is I am not an expert on this case. Honestly, I'm not an expert in anything other than my own opinion. But this case specifically, I followed it a little bit. I understood some of the details of it, and I always personally believed that the brother did it and that the family covered it up, right? So the reason why I had John Wesley Anderson on the show is, number one, we're both published through Wild Blue Press, and I thought it would be good. He's got a book out there called Lou and JonBenet. Lou Smith was the one of the investigators on the case, and so this guy worked on the case, worked on everything going into that, all the investigative work and everything, and then he left. He retired because he went into the case believing that it was the family, or thinking that it might be the family, and he left believing that it was an intruder. And he got blackballed for that, right? They did not agree with him. The media turned against him, and he ends up retiring after that and leaving law enforcement, but he never stops investigating the case. Until the day he died, he was investigating the JonBenet case. On his deathbed, he asked his family and his associates, the other detectives, to finish his work and to solve the case. Now, whether you believe he's right, whether you believe what he said was true, the guy has got incredible dedication to the case and wanting to find the person who actually did it. Now, the thing is, the JonBenet case is still unsolved, right? There has never been anybody ever, arrested, convicted, nothing. So, most people, again, the most predominant theory is that it was the family that did all this. And if you haven't watched the episode yet, I would encourage you to go and watch it. John does a great job of bringing all the evidence together and talking about it. And there are certain things in the case itself that Cryptix asked, what do I think about the spider web in the window? And that's interesting. What I'll tell you is, it depends. I don't know. I'd have to look at a picture and see how big the spider web is. But I've watched spiders create a hell of a web overnight.
Very fast.
It was quite big, Jeff. To be fair, it was quite big.
Yeah. So, I don't know. What I do know is that when they were first taking the pictures in there, that the suitcase did have footprints on it. That there were like dust from probably the window that came down, and there was a footprint there. There was a scuff mark on the suitcase and on the wall where it looked like somebody may have slipped. So, that is a pretty good indicator that somebody came through that way and went back out that way. So, but let's start even before that because it's a very strange case.
Well, is there new evidence?
So they are continuing to look at suspects and try to match DNA because they don't have anything currently, right? They have a whole list of suspects, but the problem is now they don't have any money, right? And so they are crowdfunding basically all the money to be able to do all this additional research. And there are several retired detectives that are working on this case along with the family to acquire DNA samples from suspects to be able to go into not just the police data bank of DNA, but also tap into independent resources of DNA so that they can see if they can find a match for the DNA that was found at the scene. Now, this person online who was very upset with me was challenging all the DNA stuff. And John gave me the DNA reports. Like, I have the DNA report, right? The one that was done
2008.
3 weeks after the murders, right? This is like right away, right? So this is not like, 7 years afterwards. This DNA report was done right away. It was taken right then, came back 3 weeks later, but was not released to anybody for over 3 years, which is a really, really strange thing to happen. And that DNA report clears the Ramsey family.
You think they were covering that up, and that's why it took them 3 years to release it?
That's a good question, because this is another case, right? This is another case where the media plays a huge factor, right? The media immediately jumped in there and started calling John Ramsey a pedophile and all of these things before there was any information and any real work done in the case. So they came in and really put all the spotlight on the family, and the family has never been able to get away from that. In fact, this lady that messaged me is absolutely right about this. They were, going to be brought up on charges, right? They had petitioned the Supreme Court, and they were going to have a grand jury, formally accusing the family of, child abuse and neglect and all these things. that never happened. Now you have to wonder why that never happened, you know, and I don't know what I believe happened is new evidence came out that turned away from the family. And so they couldn't really do that. There was no point. They were not going to get convicted. And I believe it's probably stayed that way. But there are people that really, really believe without a shadow of a doubt that it was the family. Now here's the thing that's really, really difficult for me when I look at that case is that, you know, they raised this little girl up, right? And on top of that, John Ramsey has no other indication that he's ever harmed any child, right? Other than this incident. And we don't really have any information on that either. But there's never, ever been any other allegations from his other children or anybody else's kids, right? But, you know, you have this little girl that they've raised up in this world of pageants. And the mom was involved in that when she was younger, was kind of vicariously living through her daughter as her daughter is doing all of this stuff. And so you wonder how a mother and father, no matter what happens in this situation, whether it was an accident that she died, whether it was, you know, the theory has always been that, you know, Patty Ramsey was upset because she wet the bed and accidentally beat her to death. The problem with all of that is the sexual assault in this case is so incredibly horrible.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a way that that the parents could have possibly done that to their own daughter, even if they killed her, right? Even if they did do it, to cover it up with a sexual assault. And it was proven that she was alive when the sexual assault was happening, right? They proved that. So if that's the case, these parents would have had to have, you know, broken this paintbrush and inserted it into their own daughter. Like, that's a hard thing to conceive of two parents. Now, here's the thing. For the last 30 years, they have been the sole suspects, right? And of course, Patty Ramsey is dead now, but her husband has been ostracized and demonized in the public for the last 30 years, their whole family. And, you know, it's crazy. I don't know.
Possible that it could be somebody that was a rival in the pageant? You know,
So,
pageantry.
Yeah.
I thought Cindy, it could have been the photographer from the pageant, but he's actually been in jail for sexual abuse against a minor.
Yeah, it could be someone involved with the pageant.
Yeah, well, I believe it was the photographer for the whole pageant, because he tried to. Sorry, Jeff. He tried to kidnap another girl. But he got caught, and it was also the same girl that was in the pageants with JonBenet.
So I wonder if if that person's DNA was ever recorded, if they were ruled out. So now see, this is one of the things I talked to John about, and he said that, you know, there's a lot of, I mean, no pun intended, but gymnastics that are done when it comes to collecting DNA, right?
Well, yeah.
Because it depends on the crime. It depends on a bunch of different factors if they'll even collect the DNA so that it ends up in the data bank. Now, let me answer one thing Cryptix mentioned on here. He said, the positioning of the suitcase is interesting. It's placed perpendicular to the wall, which is unstable. He said an intruder would place it across and against the wall for better stability. I agree with you. However, the reason why I say that it may not have been that way is because more than likely they were trying to go out the window with JonBenet, because I believe that it was probably a kidnapping and they were trying to kidnap her and she was fighting. And I think that they put it up there. They tried to pull her up through the window. She struggled and it may have ended up getting moved from where they placed it up against the wall because of the struggle.
Right.
And then they ended up saying, "Hey, that's enough of that," and they end up murdering her there in the basement.
Did they ever try to measure the footprint to see what size shoe it was or anything?
I don't think there was enough of an imprint that they could get that. And so here's another thing. Everybody talks about the footprints in the snow. There wasn't any snow outside of that window. Right? There was snow on the ground, but that side of the house,
That's interesting.
because of the way that the wind blows, did not have any snow out there. So there weren't any footprints in any snow because there wasn't any snow there to begin with.
Interesting.
So, everybody talks about that, but I didn't realize that until I talked to John, right? This is a guy that has seen all the crime scene photos, who has Lou Smith's, all of his, evidence and everything. And that's not something I would have known other than talking to him. So that was fascinating.
If you watch the Netflix documentary Sunday, it's in there.
Yeah. You talk about the one on Netflix?
Yes, watch that.
Yeah.
Because it does actually mention about no snow on that side of the house.
Yeah. So that documentary, John Anderson was an executive producer for that documentary. A lot of the information taken in that documentary was taken from his book that he wrote called Lou and JonBenet. And so that documentary was really based around his continuing work of Lou Smith's work in the case. So, and that just came out, a month and a half ago? It's pretty recent. All right, Sherry, what did you think? Because you've been quiet.
I know, right? What I thought of the talk that I thought he was amazing. He kept me riveted. I also thought it was the brother. I've actually also read some stuff on how they thought that he killed. It's just none of it would be possible if we listened to what John said. I found him to be so credible. He really changed the way I thought about everything. I do think if it's not the brother, because you know what, they also had, I don't know where I read this, or how the brother is very, very quiet, and he lives a very peaceful life, and he doesn't talk about any of this. He doesn't talk about his sister. I wonder why. But I do wonder one thing, though. The shoddiness of the police right after this happened, the way the crime scene was kept. I believe that they thought right away it was probably the parents, only because if they didn't secure the crime scene at all at any time. So I think that that's maybe the way the police had start, and that's why there's nothing that they can find. And then the DNA, I think all of it lies in the DNA, and they do need money.
Now.
They do, they're crowdfunding everything, so they do need money to do that. And I found it to be, it's very sad how Patsy died without knowing where her little girl was, and that's crushing. Do I think it'll ever be solved? Yeah, I do. And it lies in the advanced way that we do the DNA stuff. Do I remember years ago that they found, was it a custodian or some guy that cleaned stuff, and then they brought him in, or he confessed? Do you remember that? It had to be early 2000s.
He's actually in the documentary that
I didn't watch
that. The interview with him and him confessing is in there. It is it's really, really interesting the way that he goes into it and what he says, even though they cleared him at some point that he was just like a crazed fan or whatever. But so I want to mention one of the things that you brought up.
Wait, hold on one thing. Just let me ask something. The extreme violence of her attack is not is not like a parent, like you said, wouldn't be a kid. It's not a kid. That's a violent.
Yeah.
I mean, the way she was raped, violent, like hurt. Not a family member. Okay, now I'm sorry.
Yeah. So what's interesting about that? Let me put that on hold for a second because I want to talk about that too. Let's go back to the investigation itself. Now, this is one of the things that we talked about that was really, really interesting to me is when the police came in, they had a ransom note, right? And they had a girl that was not in her bed and parents freaking out that the fact that she was not there. So when the police got there, they were not looking for a murder scene, right? They were looking for the point of entry. They were looking for any evidence that somebody broke into the house. Even if they had suspicions that the parents did something, they didn't have any evidence at that point because there was nothing there. They had no crime scene. So the reason why the police didn't do, a stellar job of investigating is because that's not what they were looking for to begin with.
Mhm.
This was a kidnapping call. This was not a murder call, right? They weren't there to investigate a murder scene. They were looking and trying to figure out, is this person going to contact them back with more
Missing.
demands, right? For this missing girl. So they did a cursory sweep of the house. They didn't find the girl in the house, but they didn't look through everything because they weren't looking for a crime scene. They realized that she had probably been taken directly from her room, and they realized and they had taken pictures of the window downstairs that was broken, and they took pictures of what they believed might be the entryway, and then they waited, right? And not knowing the whole time that in the basement was the crime scene because they didn't look there. Now, why they didn't look there, it's debatable. Of course, they should have done a better job at that. But you got to think, these people probably didn't believe in that area there was going to be this crazy murder, right? And it's at this point, I think it's 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, right? And not to say that this is an excuse at all, but most cops get off at like 7, right? And they may not be trying to search at 4 a.m. To look around for this stuff like, hey, this is a kidnapping, and that's not okay, but that's reality, right? When you go into a crime is committed at 5 a.m., maybe your efforts aren't going to be as good as they might be if it happened at 11 p.m., right? And that's a shitty thing, but that's life, right? That happens sometimes. And in this instant, it was a really, really horrible result.
Do you think maybe the kidnapping happened at that time because they knew the police would be, like, not on their game, so to speak?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Cryptic says he has an issue with the tape on her mouth, and he believes it was part of a staging scenario. It was put on her mouth post-mortem as there were no marks on the tape. It was smooth. There wasn't any wrinkles, which is interesting. That's a fair point.
Oh, that is interesting.
Now what I do know, and this was a question that I asked John because I thought it was important. When he talked about the slip knots that were used on her wrists, right? I was really interested about that because if we're talking about a 9-year-old boy that did this and the scene was staged, the knots and the rope, was paracord that was put around her wrists and consequently around her neck. But if that was the case and she was struggling and they were tightening the whole time, how did they get those off? And the truth is that when John comes upstairs with the body and he's talking to him, he can't get the hands apart. He can't even get to the paracord to untie her because it's so tight, which means she was alive when she was tied up, right? And she was struggling to try to get out, and it was getting tighter and tighter and tighter. So that was interesting to me. also proved to me that it wasn't a 9-year-old boy, because I know how to do those knots because I did a bunch of like military style endurance events. But I would not at 9 years old in the dark in a stressful situation know how to do that. And I don't know that that John or Patsy Ramsey would have had the experience on how to do that either. But I mean, that's debatable. Maybe they did. I don't know. But it seems like it doesn't seem like the binding is staging, because she would have had to have been bound while she was alive. Also, the noose around her neck, the binding there, would have also had to be done while she was alive because she was scratching at it. There were marks on her neck that showed that she was trying to get away and trying to breathe. So, yeah, you know, yeah, the garrote, not by a 9-year-old. Now, was it somebody else in the household? What the DNA will say is that it was not anybody else in the household because she didn't have any of the familial DNA under her fingernails. So it was somebody else's DNA. Now, who was that? And that's the question. Okay, if it wasn't the family, who is it? It would have to be somebody outside of the house.
Right.
And the theory is that they were out that night and somebody came into the house, laid in wait, and then they got home. They put JonBenet to bed. They went to bed because they were going to get up early at like 6 a.m. or whatever to get ready to go on a trip. And so at this point, this person is in the basement and goes upstairs and kidnaps JonBenet from the kitchen, more than likely, because, they say it's probably from the bed, but she came out of the bedroom to get something to eat because we all know the pineapple theory and all that stuff. She was eating pineapple. And then she went back up to her room and they were up there. And so, yeah, there's a theory that she was tortured with cigarettes. Now, what Lou Smits believes is that she was actually hit with a stun gun.
Right.
And he's done a bunch of research on the markings that were on her neck and on her side that she was hit with a stun gun. And he's been able to replicate those marks. John has that actually in his book. He has a bunch of exhibits where these diamond kind of cross-shaped patterns. And they believe that they actually found the model that makes the exact marks. And of course, you know, that's never been proven, but that's the theory that they have, that Lou had, that it was actually a stun gun that they hit her with, which is interesting because that was another point that he made, is that there were a lot of things that were not there at the scene. The tape wasn't there at the scene. The paracord wasn't there at the scene. And obviously the stun gun wasn't there. However, what was there was another piece of rope that was not there at the house, that was not used, which is interesting to me. But maybe that's because they believed that they were going to tie up the whole family, or they were going to try to kidnap somebody else in the family, and it happened to be JonBenet. But the thing that is always mystifying to me about this case is not just the kidnapping itself, but when the kidnapping failed, that this person was sick enough to decide to sexually assault this little girl and kill her, right? That tells me that it's somebody that is way different than just somebody that's going to kidnap somebody for money. This wasn't just about money. It was about much, much more than that, because it was very violent. And, you know, so like, and it's interesting to me, and we talked about this on the podcast, that they didn't leave any semen there, right? So like, I don't know, like what was going on. Obviously they got some kind of satisfaction out of what they did, but it's not apparent as far as like your classical sexual assault case.
But
so it's interesting.
What if, the reason there was no semen, what if it was a female that kidnapped her?
You know, I mean, there's always that possibility. I don't know.
'Cause, I mean,
Since we
I'm still thinking it could be somebody involved in the pageant.
well,
Or-
here's the thing. They
Somehow.
did prove that the unknown DNA was male.
Oh, okay.
So
Or
they know that the DNA that was found is male. So it wouldn't have been a female.
Okay.
then she's taken out of the house, brought somewhere, and then brought back.
Yeah, so when I asked John about that, because that's what I thought the theory was,
Right.
and it's not.
Oh, okay.
They believe that the timeline is they entered the house early actually, and they waited down there. They kidnapped her around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. They tried to take her out. They couldn't for whatever reason. She may have fought, so they killed her in the basement, sexually assaulted her, and left her body there, and then left through the window. Which is why they never contacted him back. And Cryptics had just asked about the ransom note, because here's one of the big sticking points, right? And why everybody points to Patty, because there was several people in the news that said that it was consistent with Patty's handwriting. The note was, and it was written on Patty's notepad and all of this stuff. There were also experts that said that it wasn't consistent with Patty's handwriting at all. So, which experts do you believe? Is it the ones that said it was, or the ones that said it wasn't? And there are some weird things in the note, and that's legit. Like that they asked for $118,000, a really weird amount, right?
That's a specific amount. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really specific. And of course, when they traced a bunch of stuff, they found that John Ramsey had deposited a similar amount of money into his account. So they knew how much money he had going into the account at that time. Now, who knew that? Or how would they know that information? Was that something that they were talking about at a pageant or something? Like, hey, I got to deposit this $118,000. I don't know. But that's another really mysterious thing in this case. Like, how does that lead to it? Is it somebody that is really close to the family?
But wasn't it a bonus or something from work? It could have been somebody at work. Maybe they didn't.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I think
was a bonus. It was a bonus.
I tell you what, that's a hell of a bonus.
Here's another thought. Did Patty have any other relatives that their handwriting could have been similar to hers?
So there has always been a theory that it's been another relative. I think an uncle or a cousin. There's always been theories about that. However, again, the DNA doesn't match that. It doesn't support that. So if it was an uncle or a cousin, it would certainly be when they did the familial DNA, they would have found that. What's up? Cammie's here too. What's up, Cammie?
Hey, Cammie.
Right, I'm just waiting for my moment, Jeff, because I've got loads.
Okay, we'll go. You can go.
I've got loads. First of all, it was a female cop that actually turned up at the house.
A female what?
It was a female cop that actually turned up at the house at first. She went to the basement, looked at that door, the wine cellar where JonBenet was, and she said, "Oh, nobody could have opened that door." Now, a cop is meant to check everywhere. She didn't. She later done an interview. I don't know if you've seen it, Jeff. She done an interview on TV. And then after that, she disappeared. Nobody's heard or seen her since. And the other thing is...
Mary froze on us.
No, Mary.
The ransom note
Why am I
was given back to Patty. That should have been taken in for evidence.
Yeah.
It should have went through Patty to the cops, and it should have stayed with the cops. It didn't. Another sort of... It sounded more like a vendetta against the family. Steve Wilson, now you got sued was making lies saying it was definitely Patty. Patty hit her over the head, blah, blah, blah. They got sued because they wrote a book saying it was Patty.
Yeah.
And it's the crazy thing is, there's still people at this day that believe the family done it. But yet the FBI cleared the entire family. It's like, I think in part, the Boulder police at the time let the family down because there was evidence there, but they didn't actually put in for DNA. I think that's what John Ramsey is trying to get done. The evidence at the scene that wasn't tested to get tested, and the evidence that was tested to have it retested, which I think they should.
Yeah.
Now, it's crazy. I mean, that guy's been fine all this time. It's just, I believe it will get solved, but I've always had my suspicion about the one who done the photography for the pageant. And when I heard that he actually tried to kidnap another little girl from the pageant, I'm thinking, really? And then he was actually in jail for a sex crime as well. Now this could have been building up. Like, well, I'll give you an example. Bundy, he started like peeping Tom, and he gradually built up to the murders. This could have been a build up thing.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, for sure.
True.
So, I don't disagree with you at all, Mary. Cryptic said there's some speculation and it's kind of far-fetched, but he said that Christmas, the two parents and JonBenet got new bikes as a present, but not Burke. Could that be a possible motive? He said it's far-fetched, but something to look at. And, we're all about that here. It's certainly interesting, this is one of those cases that I hope that there is some DNA that will eventually shine light on this. And
the other thing is, though, Jeff, when John Ramsey came up with JonBenet, the police instantly should have got rid of all those people out the house, or got statements from everybody that was there, the whole 28 people. I said passing the ransom note to all the people, making the ransom note ineffective. Yeah. But there was also a copper that saw a guy dropping off the ransom note and put it in the post box.
Huh.
Really?
That was on the Netflix documentary. You should watch. I watched it.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, I watched it closely. He said he seen a dark figure. It was in like a black truck type thing. And when he tried to get him, but he just like drove off.
Well, I'll tell you, there is no doubt that the Boulder police did not do a great job in this initial investigation. There was a lot of balls that were dropped, and things were not done the way that they should be done. But here's the thing: hindsight is always 20/20, right? We'd all like to say that everything was done perfect, but it's just not the case. There are so many cases where there's been bungles in investigative techniques. But does that mean that there is, some kind of cover up or some kind of thing? As we here in a minute, we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about another case that's very, very recent, right? That there is a lot of speculation on whether there was some malfeasance by, the police and the courts and everybody else. So, it's not out of the realm of possibilities that there is some more reasoning behind this that we're not quite aware of. I think it's one of those cases that, has been you know, there's been a trial in the media, and you know, the family has been convicted by the people in the media, and not actually done in court. And you know, it's even worse when that happens, because there is no escape from that, right?
Yeah.
That family will never escape that December 25th and all the things that happened on that night, whether they are responsible or not. They are going to live with that. And the fact that people will sit here and say that they are, you know, that, you know, they got off and they're living, they are not, like, they haven't got off from anything. Like,
Yeah.
they are dealing with people looking at them and not, you know, willing to serve them and all kinds of things,
Yeah.
because people genuinely believe that they killed their daughter. And so their life has not been easy, even though they may have not been in prison for it. They have not. They have been in their own prison.
See, the burning question I've got is, Jeff, why did the police not disclose straight away that the family were innocent?
Yeah, that's
it was like it's like they just sort of got it into it was definitely the parents did it, or the brother did it. You know, it's like, it's the fact is, I almost felt like they were hiding stuff. They have sort of put the target on the parents or the brother, and that was it.
Right.
Almost feel like they let the family down. Simple as.
Or they were maybe unsure of
no,
the facts, and so they just wanted to pin it on somebody. So
they knew the facts, Cindy. That's the thing. They knew the facts. The family were tested by the FBI, and the FBI cleared the whole family, but yet the Boulder police hid it. They didn't tell. They didn't.
Why?
They didn't. Yeah, that's what I feel like. Because why hide it for all day months when they could have, instead of putting the family, basically the media tried, convicted them and jailed them. And I feel like they've still got that target on them, and that'll never go away.
Why, Jeff?
So, okay. So this is my own way out there conspiracy theory on that specifically. I think that the idea that the parents did it sells a lot of papers and creates a lot of noise and allows the media to talk about it for years and years and years to come, right? And they have. I believe that there is motivation for people to support that idea. And maybe they did honestly believe that that's the case. And so they did that. But I think that because the media picked it up so early and spread all kinds of things that were not true, that really influenced even the police that were dealing with that case to then just agree with them because it seemed very likely to them. And I think Lou is probably the only one that continued to say, hey, there's something not right here. And so he continued that investigation, and ultimately it cost him his career, right?
Yeah, well,
he was pushed out because of that. And so, you know, I think it's one of those things that's really difficult because when people set their mind to something and they believe wholeheartedly in this one thing, that's it. They have a hard time getting off of that. And you see that specifically with police, right? Once they have a suspect or once they have people that they believe they've done it, that is it. It doesn't matter what other evidence is there. They are going to go after this person 110%.
Right.
And with that being said, we're going to switch gears from JonBenet Ramsey.
Can I just say one more thing about the Ramsey case? The fact is that when Lou was on, like, basically the task force, he seen what they basically were trying to do. They had the family, they made up their mind it was the family. He actually resigned. He didn't retire, he resigned because they seen what way the police were heading. But Steve Wilson, he's another one. He was determined that it was Patty. And then he wrote a book on an active case. You can't do that. That's why he got sued. And then it's just crazy.
Yeah. Okay. So before we switch gears, because some people have said some things in the chat that I want to respond to. Burke, I may have suffered from jealous sibling syndrome, which is probably probable. But I think when you look at the evidence itself, and let me say this, I was a 9-year-old and I was a badass little 9-year-old, right? I got myself into a bunch of trouble. I almost beat a kid to death right about the time I was 9 years old, right? So it is not out of the realm of possibilities. However, the way that crime happened and the way that the things were done, I don't think that Burke could have done it. However, could Burke have started it? Maybe. We're like, that's possible. And if you believe the cover-up theory, right, that there was a cover-up on this, or that the parents like staged it or whatever, there is the possibility of that. The problem then there is the DNA. If the parents did it, their DNA is not there. If it was staged that way, none of their DNA is found there. So, like, how do you say that? Like, because his DNA would have been all over that, under her fingernails and everything, if he was the one that did it. And so I have to conclude that that's not the case.
I've got a question for you though, Jeff. A 9-year-old, could you actually make the knots the way that JonBenet was tied up?
I could not. I would have not been able to do that at 9 years old.
That's almost like a serial killer.
Yeah.
Because that's the same type of people that have been tied up like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Whoever, and the material that they used, the paracord itself, lends you to believe it had to be somebody with some military background.
Yeah.
Because, like, especially at the time, like, paracord was not widely used, by everybody and their brother until after that. But military people used it all the time. It's one of the main methods of binding and things. So it leads me to believe it was probably somebody with some kind of military background. And the fact that they knew how to do all those knots, how to fashion the garrote, all of that stuff is, again, something that you do in the military to tie up all of this stuff. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I understand, because I was sadly I was one of those older brothers. I did. Me and my sister have a really great relationship right now.
Oh, that's good.
Which is great. But I was not good to her when she was little. I remember one time, and this is a funny story. She was, I guess I was about 14, and she is 8 years younger than me, 7 years younger than me. Oh. And I was boxing even back then, and we were playing around, and I had her put on boxing gloves, and I had my boxing gloves on, and I punched her one time in the stomach and knocked her out.
Oh.
And when I hit her, like, she like went completely limp, and I grabbed her before she hit the ground, and I thought I had killed her. And I took her into the bedroom and laid her on the bed, and I felt so bad about that, which, and I felt really bad. And, this is a little kid. I used to have her punch me in the face all the time, like when I was training, because I wanted to desensitize myself and all kinds of weird shit that you do when you're a kid. But even before that, my mom will tell a story of a time when she was crying and I tried to smother her to death. I didn't know what I was doing, right? She was crying as an infant, and I was trying to get her to stop crying. Nice. And, that's a crazy, upbringing. I grew up in a lot of really, really bad situation. So when I say that I understand the thought processes that some of these people go through, I really do understand the thought process. So I come at this from a very different angle that many other people do, because I have real life experience with struggling with some of that mental illness and those things. But yeah, cryptics, I've done a lot of things, brother.
I've had something similar, Jeff, but it was my older sister.
Oh,
she
wow.
used to call me Damien.
I could see that. I could
Oh.
see that. Look at that. Look,
Dang.
I can see the horns coming out right now.
Well, how did you wave around?
That they're looking at you right now. Mm-hmm.
Wait,
I believe it. I believe it.
Oh my god.
But
All right.
I had like one memory, like, because I went to anger management and I failed because being in the group thing was making me more pissed off. But I had one story. My father, like my real father, was very abusive. He was an alcoholic. And I seen him dragging my mum with the hair of the head through the path and into the house. And I grabbed the only thing to hand, which was a metal baseball bat. And I started beating my father over the head. And literally somebody had to pull me off him.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
And I've had it since then.
yeah. So I'll tell you another story real quick, and then we'll move on. But I remember one time I was probably about 16. My sister was about 8, and she didn't want to eat dinner. My mom was beating her with a 2x4, and I heard her screaming from upstairs. And I came downstairs, and she was like in mid swing, and she looked up at me and smiled, and then hit my sister again. And that's when I went after her. It just so happened that my dad came in at the same time, and he grabbed me because he saw what I was getting ready to do. And he like threw me up against the refrigerator, and he said, "Go back upstairs, get out of here. I'll handle this." And he ended up taking care of it. But I don't know that I would have been able to control myself at that moment when all that was going on. But yeah, very similar kind of thing. Yeah. If it wasn't for somebody intervening.
I think you're sort of had the same mind frame as what I did. I just kept hitting and hitting and hitting. Right back at you, Jeff.
Yep.
Right back at you.
It's okay. It's okay. We share that. It's all right, Mary.
It's like the red mist. It's like a red mist that comes over you. Yeah. And it's like once you start, you cannot stop.
Yeah.
It's just like pound, 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 you know?
But
I go over.
What's really interesting about that is because of that and because of those moments in my life that I spent the rest of my life trying to find ways to control that part of myself and learning where the edge is and where I can't cross so that I don't become that person, because I know what I'm capable of.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want to get to that place again. Right.
Yeah. You try and avoid the trigger.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what it is.
Yep. So let me read some of the comments here. Bezo Jones said that to look into the housekeeper because she had the same paper and pen she took from the Ramseys. She knows Patty's handwriting. The note was found in the same steps. She left purses for Patsy, and she had duct tape and rope. So she also needed money real bad. She was jealous of Patsy. She had a key to the house, knew the family schedule. She hid the knife of Burke's that was left by the body. She wrote the note. She believes that she wrote the note and sent a, I don't know what a pedio in is, but how's it going, Low Light?
That's very interesting.
Interesting. So yeah, there's something else to look at. And here's the thing. And again, being completely transparent, this is a case where we need to look at everything. It is unsolved. We don't know.
Yeah.
So
Right.
looking at everything and looking at all these different ideas, you know, I don't feel like that there's one that's better than another. I think it's all evidence. It's all things that need to be looked at and
Yeah.
weighed and then see where that leads. If it
Mhm.
Yeah.
leads somewhere, great. If it doesn't, if it's the family, fine. If it's somebody else outside the family, if it's the housekeeper, if it's the
Yeah.
photographer, just figure out who it is and look into that
Yeah.
evidence. All right. All right. Enough of JonBenet right now. If you haven't watched the episode, go watch the episode. It was a great episode.
Hey,
John is fascinating. Check it out, and then ask even more questions and hit John up. He would love to answer any questions that you have because he's incredible. Get his book. It's a great book. And if you think that you want to help them, go to the link or go to the description on that video, and the link to the GoFundMe that they have is on there, and support them in helping them get this DNA research done so that they can figure out who this person is and they can
Yeah.
continue to investigate the suspects. So make sure you do that. So moving on, as I've tried to do for the 12th time now, but Delphi. I also released the Delphi series, right? That I said that I wasn't going to. I said I was just going to do a live and we were going to talk about it. And then I decided at the last second that I wanted to do a full series on Delphi. And I released it in 3 episodes. And it has been the most successful thing that we've done up until this point.
no.
And, you know, it's really funny because I said when I started this that I didn't want to, like, I wanted to interview other people because I didn't think people were going to respond just listening to me talk. And then the first Delphi video has 3,000 views right now. So, but I did it intentionally, right? I did it intentionally the way that one of the Zodiac documentaries was done. I wanted to start out with the prosecution side and take it from their viewpoint and literally prove the way that they did that Alan did it. And I'll tell you, people were not happy with me. I got lots of messages. I got lots of angry people and also I got the opposite, people that think absolutely he's guilty. You know, they jumped on there.
Nope.
And so then video 2 is the defense's side, and like it has less than a third of the views that the first video has.
I wonder why.
Because everybody hates the defense, which is really funny. So nobody wants to hear that side because they already have their beliefs, right? And that's sad because, again, you need to look at all sides of something and then make a decision. And then episode 3 is theories and appeals. And so I cover the Odinist theory in that video specifically. And then I talk about some of the other theories. And I talk about the possibility of an appeal coming. Now, I just released this the other day that I am going to do a 4th video, possibly a 5th, depending on how it goes. And there is just so much information that has come out since the gag order has been lifted that needs to be talked about from both the prosecution side, Jerry Holman, and all 3 of the defense attorneys. Alger has been out there. Baldwin and Rosie have been out there. And I just saw today that McClelland has put out an interview. And so I want to look at that. I have not had a chance to check that out yet. And the interviews themselves are fascinating. The case is crazy. And, you know, we've talked about this on here before, that, you know, that we all kind of feel like Richard Allen was railroaded. And that, you know, I honestly don't know if he was involved or not. If he was involved, great, throw him in jail. However, what I do know is that his trial was not fair. And they certainly didn't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt that he was guilty.
Right.
You know,
And
but
Jeff, I don't believe the judge was fair as well.
oh no, for sure. You know, and it's funny, and I'll talk about this when I do the next video. But in the not in the Jerry Holman, but when there was a juror that, excuse me, that just had an interview, and I listened to that, and she talked about how incredibly fair she felt the judge was. But see, this is a juror that
Yeah.
doesn't know any of the other evidence. She has no idea about any of the Odinism stuff, even though that may not even be a thing. Because here, just because I don't think that these guys were necessarily, they may have believed in Odinism. I don't think they necessarily used it and it was a factor in this murder. Yeah. I think they're Odinist. I think they went out and did it. I think they do ritual shit. And I think that was maybe part of what they did, but I don't think it was the reason. If you want to listen to the other confessions that were given that didn't go to trial, those people said it was because they were racist, and that the mother of the girl, one of the girls, Abby's mother specifically, was like sleeping around with black guys, and so that was a reason why they went and did this stuff. So it's fascinating when you look at all this. Yeah, Lowlight said the court is playing games with the exhibits and evidence is submitted.
Yeah,
there is. I saw that Sleuthy posted, or maybe it wasn't Sleuthy, it was somebody else. Somebody posted today that they were trying to acquire the evidence, or at least all the evidence that wasn't sealed, right, from the Franks memo that the defense did, and they will not release it. That they're saying they said that so and so has it, and then they went and emailed that person, and that person said that they don't have it, and there's a weird like shell game that's going on right now. So Lowlight is exactly correct. They're doing some weird stuff about all of that evidence, and so a lot of that evidence that was in the Franks memo, which consequently is right here on my desk, all 136 pages of Frank's memo is right here, right? Because I've been pouring through it for the last like month. And so there is a ton of exhibits in there. Like, for example, the painting that Brad Holder painted several days after and posted on his social media several days after the murders, that is very consistent with how the bodies were positioned, right? And that stuff, whether you want to believe in Odinism or not, has weight, especially when you look at the fact that these people also confessed, right? They talked about how Patrick Westfall was there, that he was part of the crime. Like, how do you discount all of that stuff?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's crazy to me that they just completely discounted it all and cleared these people and didn't really do it. And when you listen to Holman, he says, well, we did a thorough investigation. Yeah, the two times that you interviewed that person, and then oh, you know, it was just because somebody wanted to collect his spit and put it at the crime scene. Well, who the hell does that? Like, that's so weird. So weird to say.
The other thing is, though, Jeff, how come the witnesses' description differ?
So
that's the other thing.
Somebody commented on my video, on one of the videos today, on YouTube, commented that that they never described more than one suspect. And I said, that's not true. There were two sketches done, right? Two sketches, completely different people. Clearly, one had facial hair, one had none. One was larger build, one was skinny. One was tall, one was short, right? So, like, there's no consistency in those two sketches. They were clearly two different people, right?
Yeah.
The problem is they kept that out of the trial.
Yeah.
Now it's completely unheard of that the composite sketches didn't even go to trial.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you do that? It's crazy.
Hmm.
It's crazy to me.
Another
that
thing
they didn't
is,
do that.
why did his phone no ping when he was at the bridge as well?
Yeah.
It would have pinged over tower.
So what they say is because that phone, that specific phone, they never did get. Now here's something that's funny, and we talked about this when I was on Cryptix's show, and this was interesting to me. Libby's phone is found under Abby's body, under the shoe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now it's really weird that that phone shows up. Now who the hell keeps a phone or allows a phone to be there, but gets rid of their own phone? If you believe it's Richard Allen, he gets rid of that phone. But it's so weird that that phone is there. Now, here's something too. The night that they did the search there, right, on the 13th, when the girls went missing, they went out there and searched. The guy that searched the banks said that nothing was there. They didn't see clothes in the water. They didn't find the girls that night, and they had floodlights out there. So it was lit up like daytime, right? They don't find the girls until the next day, which leads you to believe that the girls weren't there.
Yeah.
Right?
I believe that were killed somewhere else and planted there.
Yeah.
So,
And whoever killed them, they staged the crime scene.
So there are a lot of people that think that. Of course, that's not the prosecution's assertion. They believe that at 2:32, when the phone stopped moving, shortly after that, the girls were killed, and Richard Allen was out of there by 3:30. That's their belief, right? But the evidence doesn't really support that. The witnesses don't really support that. So it's really interesting. But when you have a case where 90% of the evidence that the defense has isn't even admissible, like how do they defend this guy? Whether he did it or not, you know?
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's look in the chat here. Bezo Jones says that she believes that Richard Allen is 100% innocent. Zero evidence against him. She's been following the case for 7 years. Let's see. They said that they didn't do any kind of investigation. The DA is a liar and the judge is biased. The Frank's memo is the handbook of what really happened to the girls that day. The prosecution did not prove that RA was Bridge Guy, and they didn't even prove that Bridge Guy killed anyone. And
all of that is 100% because I believe that he's totally innocent. I think you do as well, Sherry, don't you?
Oh yeah, I don't think no, absolutely.
No, I don't.
So here's one thing. It's interesting because Cryptix believes that he was involved. But one of the interesting things that he brought up to me, which is fascinating, is the fact that there are no defensive wounds at all. Right? None of the girls have any defensive wounds on their hands. If you have somebody that is trying to kill you and it's one guy, how do you do that? Right? How do you kill somebody without them fighting back at all? Right? Without anything happening. And certainly, how do you kill them one at a time then?
Yeah, because one of them would run away. One of them would run away.
Or they'd fight. Right?
It must be at least. It must be at least. I think it was at least two people there. At least two people killed the girls.
Maybe there's two different sketches because they're two different people.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Point. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah. So I believe that there was definitely more than one person.
Yeah.
I believe there had to be multiple people. I don't believe that any of that makes sense with one person.
No.
Even if you have a gun, I've been there, right? I've been out to the Monon High Bridge. I've been out to the area where the girls were killed. And like, there's no way of controlling two girls.
Right. Yeah.
without anybody hearing it, right? Because we know that no one heard it, right? There were no screams. And out there, you're talking about in February, right like it is now, right? It's cold outside. There's no leaves on the tree, which means there's nothing to insulate the noise, right? When you're in a forest, the reason why you don't hear things is because the leaves are on the trees and they insulate noise, right? And you can still hear things for miles in the forest. There, all the leaves are off the trees. There is nothing to block that sound. Now, the one thing that they talk about is it depends on the way the wind is blowing. Now, there is a factor in that. That if the wind is blowing a certain way, you might not hear as much noise. But this is not a crime where these girls aren't screaming for an extended period of time, right? At least 5 or 10 minutes, you're going to hear these girls screaming. So, like, it blows my mind that nobody heard anything. The photographer that was there in the area that day doesn't hear a word, right, of any screams or anything. But yeah, so I think it's got to be more than one person. I don't think he could have controlled those two girls. I also don't think he could have moved the bodies the way that they were moved, undressing and dressing them in less than an hour and a half to get it done. I don't think that he would have been able to do the precision in which that was done. There is the possibility, and we talked about this, that the girls may have been hung upside down because of the way that the blood flows from the neck onto the face. So how do you do that as one dude? Especially since they didn't have any ligature marks, right? So they got no ligature marks. There's no tape marks where he duct taped them or zip tied them or anything like that. There's also no proof that he drugged them. So they weren't drugged during this time. How do you control them? How do you get them into position where, you know, it's so ludicrous to me that it could have been one person that did this.
I would also say to anybody in the chat, watch the Defence Diaries with Bob Motter on the episode about Richard Allen as well, because that is very interesting.
Yeah, for sure. So Cryptic said there's a lot of blood at the crime scene, mostly from Libby. So at least Libby was killed there, but when? We don't know when. But not too much blood from Abby, which is weird. So, you know, here's the possibility, right? With that, you know, maybe they were taken somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
Abby was killed somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
And then they came back and it was only one girl. Now that leaves the possibility that it was just one person. There's that is a possibility. And then they killed Libby there at the crime scene.
Yeah.
You know, that Libby was still alive. You know, there's that leaves a whole different possibility there, because it's really interesting that the rest of Libby's body is clean. Even the clothing that she was. And Cryptic says that he thinks Abby redressed herself, which means then Libby would have had to have been killed first. She was naked, was probably killed first. So there's a lot of weird shit with the timeline here that I think is really difficult to understand and really next to impossible to believe that one person did it. Have you guys been have any of you guys been watching the interviews of like the attorneys and stuff?
No.
No.
It pisses me
Okay,
off.
so I've watched most of them, right? And I've taken a whole bunch of notes. I'll be talking about that in the next Delphi video that I do.
Okay.
I'm gonna focus on all of that. I'll give you a few bits of information that I thought was really, really interesting now in my special notebook because I think it's really significant.
Is this from defense or prosecution, Jeff? Though
Both.
Is that
both? All right. Okay.
Wait, is that the one you got for Christmas?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's one of them. That's one of them.
Yeah.
Remember, he's got. Remember, Sherry's got the little book as well. The little
all right,
book.
let me see here.
What are you doing?
Let's
No?
see. Oh, here we go. I really wanted to talk. This is what I kind of wanted to refer to. Bezo Jones. She said the crime scene tells a story. It's a clear message from the killers to Libby's dad, in her opinion. I'm interested to know what you think that message is, and why that would be apparent to the dad. Was the dad involved in some of that stuff? I'm interested because I don't know the answer to that. So so let me know, Bezo. I'm kind of curious. Okay, so Jerry Holman in his interview talks about Alan, and he talks about the interview with Alan. And one of the things that's interesting to me about this is that he says that Richard Allen refused multiple times to take a lie detector test. That was really, really interesting to me. Now, of course, we have not gotten to hear that video of the interrogation of Richard Allen. Everybody else, like the defense and the court, heard it, but we haven't gotten to hear that yet. It hasn't been released, so I'm interested to see if that's the case. If that's something he just said later on, if that's even on the tapes at all, because there's apparently many, many, many things in this case that have gotten mysteriously deleted or didn't make the videos or whatever. So, and so Lowlight said that they would have refused too. You know, it's interesting because, you know, there's always this thing, well, you know, if you're not lying, then you should do it. Well, they're not admissible in court anyway, right? Polygraphs are not admissible. So, like, what does it matter? But of course, it always looks kind of fishy when somebody says, I'm not going to do a polygraph. But if you're already afraid that people are trying to railroad you and blame you for this murder that you didn't commit, who's to say they're not going to doctor the polygraph?
Right.
So, like,
is that like 100% true though, Jeff? That his statement admitting that he did it was done under duress? Did the prison guards tell him at the jail, you better confess or else? Is that actually true?
So we don't know that. We don't. And I'll tell you, I was surprised. And this is one of the things I was really surprised with. When Baldwin and Rosie came on and they did their interview, one of the things that they talked about is how much they liked the prison guards. Right? And I expected that to be different. I expected them to say that they were really being terrible and, you know, they were awful people. And that was not the case. They said that there was a couple of them that were not very nice, but by and large, most of the prison guards were great. Like I said, I've met one of them. He seemed to be a nice guy. So maybe he was one of the people that they were talking about. But yeah, it was really, really interesting. Yeah, I agree with you, Cryptics. It is lesson learned. Don't talk to the police and call a lawyer. Because in actuality, this is also the interview where Alan came in. He acts like, you know, well, shit, they're going to arrest me anyway. So just arrest me. And so he goes in there and he denies it. He denies it. But like Holman is like amping it up the whole time, lying to him, telling him that they've got all this evidence against him. And so Alan at some point gets really angry. He just kind of shuts down and he's like, well, fuck it. You guys have got me, whatever. I'm going to go to jail anyway. You're going to arrest me. I'm not saying anything else. So Cryptics, I believe that they were talking about Westville. They were talking about Westville and the guards at Westville that they liked. Very nice. So, all right. I wanted to read some of the stuff from the juror because this is really important, right? I will tell you, and I'm going to mention this later, that
Mm-hmm.
the Murder Sheet did this interview with one of the jurors. It was very edited, right?
Oh, right.
Made me
Mm.
wonder what they took out of there that they didn't want, that didn't fit their narrative, right? But you always
Yeah.
have that. I hope that that's not the case. But we all know that the Murder Sheet is all about convicting Richard Allen and that he's the only person and all of that. So, but there were a couple of really important things in there that she said that the van played a huge part in the deliberations, that it was a big thing. However, we also know that the van came out like 6 years ago. So people knew online that there was a possibility of this van. There were podcasts that were talking about it, that talked about the van that was in this, and the fact that the prosecution played it off in trial like there's no possible way that Richard Allen could confess and know anything about a van because nobody knew the van,
Huh.
even though 6 years ago the
But
van came out, right? But of course, this was not something that they could talk about at trial. So it's really really unfortunate that that ended up being a big thing. This was really interesting that the jurors said that the bullet evidence was not a big factor, that they did not believe the bullet evidence. The jurors did not, that they thought it was junk science, which it is, right? This idea that that round came from Richard Allen's gun and that they proved it. And the truth is that they didn't prove it at all because the only way that they could prove the markings is by firing Richard Allen's gun. And
Right.
those markings are not the same as ejecting a spent casing or an unspent casing and cycling through the gun. They they were never able to make the same markings. So it was probably not Allen's gun at all. But it wasn't a factor for them, for the jurors. It wasn't a factor. Now, the problem ended up being Voorhees' testimony. That testimony is what basically got Allen convicted because she said that she saw Bridge Guy and Richard Allen said that he saw her. And to the jury, that proved that he was Bridge Guy. That is the evidence that got Richard Allen 130 years in jail. That is a thin piece of evidence. I'm just saying. Like, that is, to me, but of course, I'm not sitting in the trial. I'm not understanding that this is the only evidence that I have to judge this case. And what I would have to say is, by the evidence that was presented at trial, I can see why they would believe that it was Richard Allen and why they would believe he was Bridge Guy. If they had options and they got to see the sketches and 2 different sketches of Bridge Guy and several different possible suspects, I think that there would have been a very, very different decision in trial, which is why it's going to go to appeal.
Right.
And I believe that they're probably going to win an appeal. There will be a new trial, and hopefully they'll be able to use and get that evidence in there because it needs to be looked at. Even if the result is the same, even if they continue and end up convicting Allen and he goes to prison forever, it needs to at least be considered. And the fact that Gall kept it out altogether and refused any third party theory at all is ludicrous. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, those were the things that the jurors said. And those were fascinating to me. I thought, I had been waiting the whole time to hear one of the jurors come out because I wanted to understand, like, what is their thought process when they're deliberating the end of this trial in this man's life? What is it that clinched it for them? And of course, we only have one juror's opinion. Other people could think many, many other things, so we don't know the full breadth of that. But this one juror, we got their opinion, and that was it. So, and it was interesting to me that juror, the only person they really didn't like was Rosie.
Really?
They liked Baldwin a lot. They liked Auger. They liked all of the people on the prosecution. But man, they did not like Brad Rosie. They did not like him at all. They thought he was aggressive and nasty and yeah. So, and see, the big thing that she said is she felt like the prosecution was very, very professional, and she felt like the defense was very scattered and couldn't get their case together. But how do you provide a defense when the judge takes out every piece of evidence that you can provide? So of course they were scrounging because they weren't able to provide the right defense, right? Yeah. Cryptic said that she found Rosie condescending. I mean, I could see that. And I thought it was funny that she said that, oh my God, I can't think of her name now. But on the prosecution, the one, Stacey Diener, she said that Diener was incredible the way that she dressed, because like she had a different outfit every day, and she was always impeccably dressed. I thought that was really funny that that would be a qualification, I guess. I'm sure maybe the men found it different, but this juror was a woman, and she thought that Stacey Diener was the bee's knees. I thought it was funny.
Still think he's innocent.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be interested to see what happens as we move into the appeal process.
Yeah.
And one of the big things to me is this whole idea, because they say that there was no nexus to investigate these other people, but there was certainly a nexus.
Yeah.
And like, it's crazy to think that there wasn't. And there is a lot of other theories out there that are interesting. There was a couple years before Delphi happened, there were four girls, I believe, that were killed in a fire and everything. And Jerry Holman was also part of that investigation. That has never been closed, right?
Yeah.
So there is some interesting stuff there. The people that were watching the videos that I did were the ones that actually turned me on to that information. I did not know that beforehand. And so I want to look into that a little bit and to see if I think there's any connection there. I don't know. But it's interesting to think that there might be.
Me personally, my gut feeling is that Brad is definitely involved. He is one.
So it was interesting to me that they said that that they could never place a bunch of the people in Delphi, right? Even though we know that Brad Holder was really close friends with Patrick Westphal, and Patrick Westphal lived just outside of Delphi, that Brad Holder would go there every weekend to do rituals and to hang out with Patrick Westphal. So it's like, how can you say that they weren't there?
And plus the fact of the stuff that he was saying, which only the killer would really know about the crime scene.
Maybe
that's another thing.
Could be.
Kindness said most of the sidebars during the trial were in favor of the prosecution. You were absolutely right.
That's true.
There's only one thing. There's only one time in the whole trial where she ruled in favor of the defense, and it was about a video that the prosecution wanted to put in that showed Richard Allen getting angry and threatening the prison guards. She didn't allow that in, which is interesting to me.
see how they didn't allow some of the evidence? Does that mean that the prosecution is scared a bit? Because evidence that was basically dismissed, maybe it could have proven Richard Allen's innocence.
I don't know that it would have proven his innocence, but
Yeah.
it would have certainly given enough reasonable doubt that they would have not been able to convict him. For sure. 100% that would have been the case.
But,
because if they would have been able to bring up the other confessions, if
Yeah.
they would have been able to show the composite sketches, they would have not convicted Allen, right? There wouldn't have been enough.
Me personally, Jeff, I don't believe Holder was properly investigated.
No, because
I think they only scratched the surface.
yeah,
Because I think they had literally made up their mind it was Richard Allen, and that was it.
for sure. They definitely did that. And I thought it was interesting that Holman said that when he was there at the crime scene,
Yeah.
he always believed that it was one person that did it. And then he said, held open the possibility that it may have been more than one. But then when he saw all the evidence, he said it had to be just one guy. And I thought, what evidence? Like how? Because I can't. It's just unbelievable. Yeah. Amy, I agree. I don't understand why. Well, let me rephrase that. I do understand why the sketches weren't taken into evidence. It's because they knew that they couldn't win if those sketches were there.
Yeah.
Right. That's why they weren't taken into evidence because they needed to cloud it. And I think that they successfully did that. That they were able to shield the jurors from any evidence that could have been contrary to what they believed. Like, here's the thing, and the juror talked about this too. The fact that they went out and they Google searched the water damage on the phone, and if that could do make it think that there was a headphone. Like, who does that? Like, that's not expert testimony, right? Nobody researched that. They literally did a Google search like you or I could do right now and say that that's fact. It's not fact. And Cryptics mentioned this. So they talked about the juror mentioned that she was really angry with the trial because there were a bunch of malfunctions with the video at the trial, right? That the video that they were playing things kept screwing up, right? And so it's interesting that when Jerry Holman has his interview, he talks about the fact that in every single case, there are malfunctions that that technology is great when it works. And of course, we know that there were many, many interviews, Brad Holder's interview, Elvis Fields' interview, that were taped over and nobody has ever seen them, right? And so, the fact that there were all these technology issues, and all of a sudden at trial, there's all of these technology issues, and they're testifying that, oh, it was just technology issues. I feel like they set that shit up to influence the jury so that they could say, look, there's technology issues right here. We had technology issues too. And I really think that was a game that they were playing to influence the jury and say, oh, yeah, I guess there is a lot of these technical issues that happen. But yeah, I think it's, I think it was well crafted by the judge and the prosecution to get exactly what they wanted, because I believe that their evidence was so incredibly flimsy and their case was so incredibly flimsy. I don't think that there is any way they could have won it any other way. So, yeah. All right, let's see. All right, guys. You guys got anything else to add? because we're getting, man, it's already been an hour and 40 minutes. What do you got? I've been talking a whole bunch now.
That's pretty normal for you, Jeff. Come on.
Yeah.
Not me.
But the thing that I put in the chat, because I'm still actually watching the face-to-face Scott Peterson thing. I still think he's guilty, by the way, but
You
I still
do?
think he's a narcissistic. Bleep. I still think he is. And I feel like the sister-in-law is delusional.
Okay.
But because the detectives that are former detectives are now retired, it'd be great if you got either one of them, either one of the three on the podcast. I think that'd be brilliant.
Oh yeah. I'd really like to do something with the whole Scott Peterson thing.
It's just the fact that he's trying to say on this thing, because I really got angry earlier on. I wanted to throw something at my TV because the amount of bullshit that he was coming out with was unreal. He's trying to make out that he didn't have a relationship with Amber Frey, which of course he does, because if it seems to forget though, Kim, you've got your wife who's ready to deliver a baby just about, and you go on a fishing trip and leave her on her own. That's one.
They have the recordings and everything, and the messages that they sent back and forth.
Yeah, and when they were doing the vigil for Lacey, he was on the phone to her pretending that he was in Paris. Come on, if you've got nothing to hide, why lie?
Yeah,
why lie? My opinion. This is totally my opinion. It's nobody else's. I don't believe he should have been taken off death row. Don't.
Yeah, there's certainly a place for that, because I agree with you. I think he's guilty as can be.
Yeah.
They never proved anything to me. There's so much suspect stuff in that case.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens, though.
Yeah.
And
he's trying to say that. Yeah. Oh, you'll dig deep. I know. You'll dig deep.
I like to look at and see what they're saying, whether it's
he's trying to say that he's trying to say that Lacey knew about the boat. Now, Lacey's mother said she did not know about the purchases, and he also purchased 2 rather large drums as well.
All right.
And the police, this is what I'm watching. I think you should, if you can find it, because I've got it on Sky Crime. But the police, when they were out in the water, found these 2 canisters that was made up, and they looked at it and they says they didn't think that was relative to the case, and put them back in the bay. And guess what? They've never ever found them again.
That's interesting, because they have the bodies though, right? Yeah, they did.
They found Connor first, and then a day later they found Lacey. But there was duct tape at the bottom of her stomach.
Mm-hmm.
And it was still on her when they found her.
Crazy.
I followed that since the beginning. I've watched the trial and everything. I followed that, but
that is certainly something. And here's the thing: you guys that are out there that are listening, thank you guys for listening. First of all, thank you for sticking with us. Thanks for the kudos, Cryptics. It is much appreciated. But if you have a case that you want us to go through and to cover, and you want me to get a guest on the show to discuss the case, like, throw me some names, right?
Yeah.
Throw me some names. I will reach out to them and see if I can get them on the podcast. But if you know of an author or an expert or one of the police or anybody that's involved with it that might want to get on air and talk about it, I am more than willing to talk about it. And it doesn't have to be my opinion, right?
Yeah.
I don't have to agree with them to discuss it and to look at it. And they may have something to offer that I don't know yet, right? I'm not fucking, I know a lot of things, but I don't know everything.
Yeah.
And so, like, there may be evidence and angles that I'm not seeing, and I want to see those things. I'm very open-minded. I want to see things from every different perspective. So like send those my way. Hit me up. Send me a message on YouTube, on Facebook, or whatever.
And I want to say, Jeff, thank you to all the new subscribers. Keep subscribing. Because I think you're over 200 now.
And
you're over 200 subscribers now.
We quadrupled, like almost, well, not quite, a little bit less. We tripled in like a week and a half. So like that's super cool.
You know, just spread the word. Subscribe to the channel. It's free.
And hit the thumbs.
Hit the like button.
Yeah,
hit the like.
Comment and like and all that stuff.
Algorithm.
Lowlight said, "What about something not aired till after the appeal?" Yes, Americans are suckers for murder and accents. That's why we got Mary on here, right?
I knew that was coming.
Knew there was a reason. No. We love you,
Oh,
Mary.
wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, I know you girls do, but you know that Jeff likes to have a dig. You know that.
Yeah.
Hey, all I'm gonna say is Saskatchewan, right?
Oh no, I should say that because Saskatchewan, because of my accent.
No, he's just
Yeah.
Oh man.
So we never actually done any trivia.
Yeah, we didn't.
Yep.
Because Sunday.
No trivia.
You're still looking at the trivia queen, by the way.
There she is.
That's all right.
Where's that crown? Where's that crown?
All I see is horns right now. That's all I see.
Well,
no crown.
I'm just like sending them straight back to you, Jeff, with bells on.
So Cammie said that she is live streaming to Chatter right now. So there are people on Chatter that are hearing us too, not just on YouTube. So and Cammie said that she's coming for you, Mary.
Come on,
bring it, Cammie. Bring it, Cammie. Bring it.
So we're gonna have to talk about this more about Scott Peterson. Bizzo Jones says that Scott Peterson is innocent.
No,
I don't.
No, he's the most.
Mary.
When he got the guilty verdict, his face was completely blank.
So
and even when he got the penalty phase, when the judge said he was actually getting the death penalty, nothing.
No emotion.
Nothing.
So
he's a narcissist.
I'll be interested to see what happens with all of this because it'll be interesting to see. And I know that there are a lot of opinions on both sides, just like all of these cases. That's why we talk about them so much, right? Because there are always questions and we're always looking to see, what pushes us closer in the direction of the truth. Because we're all looking for the truth, and that's what we want. At least I hope that's what we want.
On the thing that I'm watching, the jurors are speaking as well on it. And one of them says, he'll never admit the truth. He'll take this to the grave and then straight to hell. Because that's where he should be. That's one of the jurors. What she said about Peterson.
So Bizzo said that Scott Peterson was convicted because he cheated on his wife. Bottom line, I don't disagree with you on that one. I think that there was evidence, but I also think that was a heavy factor. I agree with you there. That That's one of those things. You see a
If there
guy
was,
that's fucking
if there
around
was,
on his wife,
if there
and
was
she
nothing
turns
going
up dead.
on, if there was nothing going on, then why didn't he not admit to the affair with Amber Frey?
He was afraid.
Okay, that's what
Where,
he's trying to say on this, but that's total bullshit, Jerry.
well,
Total.
here's the thing. Here's the thing. Ultimately, that's what got him convicted.
That's
Yeah.
right.
The fact that came out, right?
Yeah.
They were like, well, your wife is dead. She disappeared. The baby is dead. And you're out here fooling around with this other lady trying to end your marriage. You know, it looks suspicious. So,
Yeah, and he has always said that he never wanted kids
yeah.
as well.
Yeah,
Hello, Veronica.
wait. So he doesn't want kids. So divorce her.
No,
For.
he's just
Scary.
an evil man that should spend the rest of his life behind bars.
Well, it'll be
Nothing.
interesting to see what happens, and I got to tell you, it'll be for sure something that we cover,
Yeah.
and that we move into more. Like I said, if you guys know people involved or authors, maybe other podcasters and stuff, let me know, and we'll have them on to talk about it because
But
it's fascinating.
also seen your thing on Facebook with Jonathan about the JFK. Now,
Oh yeah,
as you know, I studied the Kennedys,
yeah,
so that I'm looking forward to.
yeah. So
Let's do.
I'm waiting. What's that?
Let's do the Dable trial too. The shit show.
Oh my God. Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I got some opinions about that. So I definitely want to talk about that at some point. So
One word, that is juicy.
oh, it is. That's for sure. So
What happened?
all right. No, I was just reading the chat. Sorry.
Oh.
It was a longer post.
I thought Sherry was going to say, I need to go because it's Pokemon time. That's what I
Oh,
Yeah, well, no.
it is Pokemon. It's dinner time for me. So thank you guys so much for joining us for this live. It has been incredible. Thank you guys in the chat for joining in and keeping the conversation going. I appreciate you guys. I agree that Daybells are guilty of sin, but it is a crazy case.
It is.
Anytime you're talking about the kids are demons and
I'll pose a question in the chat. I believe Laurie should have got the death penalty as well. There you go.
Okay, well there you go.
Yeah, but she couldn't because something got screwed up with the defense and the prosecution didn't do the.
Did she not do a deal though, Sherry?
It wasn't about her. It was about they didn't do something in time, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
No, I think she done a deal, did she know? Because she should have got the death penalty. Because I think she's just as equally as guilty as him.
And good old whatever his name is threw her under the bus. This is a fun trial.
Yeah.
And her brother Alex. Oh.
Yeah, I'm going through the other one at the minute, the Donald Adelson one.
We could see.
Okay, so
Yeah.
okay, we need to get off of here. But let me remind you guys real quick before we get off of here. Next Tuesday will be my episode with oh my goodness, why can't I think of it? With Karen
lawyer.
with Karen Conti.
Come on, Jay.
With Karen Conti, who was Gacy's final defense attorney. She was the one that did the death row appeals of John Wayne Gacy. And so I have a discussion with her. So that will drop next Tuesday. The week after that, we will be back on here discussing all the things and any other crazy shit that comes up in the world of true crime. We'll talk about it all. And yeah, we'll do it again. So thank you guys so much.
Jess, before you go, quick one.
Guilty.
I can't remember. I can't remember her name, but I would love you to get. You know how you've got Karen Conti coming on. Well, you've done the interview. I would love you to get Bundy's death row, the last attorney he had. You remember the woman that set up fucking Dobson? I
Oh,
would
okay.
love, I would love you to get her on here.
He was guilty too.
That'd be
Yeah,
interesting.
but she done like his final appeals.
No, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. I mean, I'm not kidding. He's guilty. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Veronica, before we get off of here, check out the replay because I don't know how long it takes, but right after this, you'll be able to watch the whole thing. So
Yeah.
sadly, you won't be able to interact with us but you can comment. So comment on there, and when I see it, I'll get back on there and I'll answer whatever comments, or at least I'll like it or love it or something, or one of the ladies will comment because they get on there and look at this stuff too.
Hey, Jeff,
Yeah.
you know what we should do? We should have a drinking game. Ready? How many times? Every time Sherry moves, we can drink. Every time that Mary moves her head, somebody can drink. And then how many times
We would
Sherry,
all
Cindy
we
moves?
would all be dead. We would die.
Sherry, can I just
We'd all
say
be dead.
how many times that you move, we would
I know.
all be we
My
would all
husband-
be paralytic. We
Yeah, my
would all
husband's
be
dead.
paralytic.
Right, I know, right? I move all the time. I can't help it. Sorry, guys.
That's
It's okay.
funny.
All right, guys.
You should never disappeared, and it's lovely to have Cindy back. Even
Yeah.
though it's
Absolutely. Even though it's only for the night. Cindy,
Well,
get
Yeah,
better.
Well,
and-
if your other YouTube things last this long, I may be able to pop in for part of it because
Oh,
Yeah.
I get off work
Yay.
at 2:15.
Yeah.
And I'm
Five
usually on the
15.
bus
Before-
between
Sunday.
2:30 and 3.
Cindy, you're always guaranteed they're well over an hour. Always.
Sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Cindy. So, all right, guys. Cindy, get better. Make sure you get healthy.
Thank you.
And we will see you all next week. Or, well,
Bye,
2 weeks from now.
everyone.
See y'all.
2 weeks time. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye, Cindy.
Bye.
Bye.